Hi there. Welcome to another presentation of the Globe Sound Healing Conference. We got Randy Masters this time. Hey, Randy.
All right. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Welcome, welcome. Randy has
Yeah.
a BA in music, film, master's, and PhD in divinity. And he is a multidisciplined alchemist, an award-winning composer, professional musician, and instrumentalist, a former university music teacher, and he's also uh, during his music career, has been a guest and feature performer with Tito Puente, Charlie Bird, Hedzola Sounds from Ghana, Africa, America composer Lou Harrison, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, Danny George of the Ink Spots, and many other world-renowned musicians. Over 30 years ago, he became the first sound healing teacher at the Globe Institute. Yep, we've been friends for a long time now, and
Mhm.
he's still serving on the faculty as a wellness facilitator for sound healing and spiritual counseling, Regenesis, and Universal White Time. He combines his expertise as a composer with several albums and music scores, harmonic mathematician, and background in esoteric sciences to reveal the precise harmonics of our universal life field. He's an international lecturer, author, and well-known specialist in the field, often sought out by many. And he's done in-depth research on the pyramids, sacred sites, and the mathematical language of light and the harmonics of sacred numbers. His lifetime mission as a spiritual and academic mentor is to teach and inspire everyone to connect the dots to a far more loving, intelligent universe and their own divinity. I often think of it as the matrix that we live in of color, light, geometry, sound, and we're all a part of it.
Those things, yep, is the core.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
However, in connecting the dots, it seems like the dots are moving around these days. A little more challenging connections.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that
Maybe
keeps
they're
us from
changing
being
their
bored.
mind.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so if you had all the money in the world, how would you take all this information and help people dramatically?
Well, I would certainly want to sponsor technologies that use these areas, color, light, sound, geometries, form, and have some really profound healing equipment made and easily made available for people that either they can afford it or even preferably for free, you know, not because people are so challenged with finances and things, and a lot of healing things are very expensive for people. And I think then people need a little extra help kind of to pull up out of the challenges that they've been having. So, and I would put a team together because I know people, scientists, and others all over the world, and we'd love to work together if we had the funds to do certain projects. I would develop different cymatic equipment, light devices, and have very specific wavelengths of that light synchronized with the wavelengths of the sound. So, if a blue color was a D note, I would want whatever wavelength of blue that we use to have the D note that actually corresponds to that. I think something else happens there. And then building different kinds of, like you and I have done, there chambers built on certain kind of resonances. So, and also work things so we can bring the temple to the people, and they don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to jump on a tour and deal with all the stuff that you have to deal with. The planes being sprayed with stuff at the airport. People losing stuff in baggage chuck. You know,
Mhm.
that's where they get their consciousness together because instead of baggage check, they chuck it and then they can't reclaim it. So that helps them stay clear. That's
So
my
it's a healing, but also getting people high and into higher consciousness, right?
absolutely, yeah. And whatever we want to say that higher consciousness is, and part of that is bringing that higher consciousness here out on Earth, rather than a lot of people kind of don't like things that are happening here, kind of want to get away and get out of things, and they become ungrounded because whatever is going on in the universal life field here on Earth is maybe irritating to them. So there's a kind of a tendency to be ungrounded and spaced out rather than grounded. And I believe to really bring the consciousness here, which is bringing heaven to earth and bringing heaven out of earth more, and being grounded. And
That
one of
seems
the things that
that seems like a recurring theme, and actually the last few conferences is also with other presenters, and this one is really being in your body while getting high
absolutely.
or
And one of the
connected to earth.
colors that I hadn't really been using early in life was the color brown, sort of a light medium brown, like chakras below the root chakra down to the feet, and wrapping that in a brown light helps, and eventually even around the body to be grounded. And that's something that I learned from Stuart Swerdlow, who was in the Montauk project and has got tons of books. He's quite a guy working with hyperspace and hyperspace symbols and so on.
So it would be a brown light, you said?
Yeah. Now,
Like,
when I
like
started,
LED?
yeah. Mm-hmm. When I started working with the colors, I got the Dinshaw colors from Dinshaw Gaudiali Spectrochrome, of which there were basically 9 to 12 specific colors that Dinshaw used. And I put them in a slide projector and sat in front of the slide projector and had these lights shining on my body, which was very interesting. Then later, I started making the tuning forks that went with that. I cracked his mathematical code and learned how to make an unlimited number of tuning forks that are all in his mathematical place. But there was no brown. Then later on, I got slides from a particular psychic woman who was really phenomenal, like 100 slides. That included pearl colors and electric colors and colors that I actually don't know how to convert. And I don't know anybody that does, how to convert them to sound, the pearl colors, or like electric blue, electric green. What is the sound equivalent of the electric nature of that? And this is something I want to find out about, because I think there's a whole lot more in color that we don't typically know. Let's say lay people and in general, and it's not in the textbooks. I've researched everybody, all the famous light researchers. None of them could provide anything about that other than like channeled material.
So tell people, what's the standard formula for transferring color to light that's kind of the most accepted mathematical formula? I know it's in my book. I got it from you originally.
Well, actually, but that's up for grabs now too. But I researched everybody from Babbitt, you name it, throughout history, all the way back like into the 1700s. And so those early scientific folks were using the speed of light and dividing the wavelength of color into the speed of light. At that time, they used like 300 kilometers for the speed of light. And now that's later changed, which I'll mention. But so if you have nanometers, the speed of light in nanometers would be like 3 times 10 to the 17th power divided by.
So nanometers, just so people know, nanometers are the frequency of colors, the number of vibrations per second.
Yeah, the unit of measurement for colors, like hertz is for sound. But then angstroms is also used, and an angstrom is 10 times the nanometer. So if you have 656.1, which is a hydrogen red nanometers, you'd have 6561 angstroms.
How many, to give us an idea, is nanometers like millions, or when you say 6.51 million?
Well, yeah. When you do that, the sound frequency you get is in the trillions. Red hertz up into 400 and some trillions of hertz.
So that's when, I'm sorry, wait. So that's when you're dividing the nanometer frequency, which is measurable, right? Into the speed of light.
In nanometers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in nanometers. Okay.
Yeah, you got to keep you can't divide it into kilometers. You've got to keep
gives you a sound frequency.
Right.
Okay.
And that almost all of the scientists were doing that. And when they do that, you would get green would be a C note, not red. And red would be F sharp, G, maybe moving up into G sharp, and that type of thing. Not like a C note equals red. But then you get a guy like Keeley, who wrote a book called The Physics of Love, and he was a very advanced scientist. And he said, well, red is C. But I have not been able to find a formula for him. What did he use in order to get a C note out of red wavelengths?
So
I couldn't
that's
find that.
that's the chakra system you're talking about now.
Well, the one that a lot of people quote,
Yeah.
because it got put out more by channel people that said, C is red and D is orange, and moving up the rainbow through the chakras. But they don't move just in half steps and whole steps. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on in there. So I call that more like, unfortunately, the new age version of colors. And it's very popular. And a lot of people that we both know, that's what they use. Their scale is like the white keys on a piano. In C, you start with C for the root, and D for the second, and orange.
Which nobody knows where it came from, where the C to B thing,
I
right?
didn't find, of course. I found a few other scientists that had some different things, but most of them were using the speed of light. And I know a lot of scientists, and I've worked with different ones, and they were all using that. Well, now I don't use 3 times 10 to the 17th nanometers any longer. I use
Or the speed of sound.
Yes, for the speed of light. Yeah, I use the value 2.99792,458 times 10 to the 17th for nanometers. In other words, or for kilometers, 299,792.458 kilometers per second. Now, I saw that number occur here, and then I go, well, what's going on here? Well, it turns out that the Great Pyramid and the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, latitude north of the equator, is exactly that number, 29.9792,458 degrees north latitude. The whole number, every one of the digits in it. I thought, okay, now there's something going on.
Wait a second. You're saying the latitude of the pyramid is what somebody says is the speed of light?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What now?
I mean, that's like the most bizarre correspondence I've ever heard, down to like 8 decimal points.
It blew my mind. I did like 30 years research with Wes Bateman, 12 of them with him, on the pyramids, every measurement of all the pyramids of Giza and the mathematics of it and that kind of a thing. And that number never came up then. But now, when you look under the various physics constants, and I don't now consider the speed of light to be a constant, I think it varies. And so now I don't know what is really going to be the most accurate way of converting the sound and light, since that speed of light, a lot of scientists now are not considering it a constant.
Okay, here's a big question. How do we change the speed of light?
Well, I think it's already changing. You get past the solar disk in the rotation with all the planets, and then it goes up by another number by some scientists. Now, it's not like NASA is going to tell you this.
So it's not like your consciousness changes. It's just where you are in the universe.
Yeah, well, yeah. In terms of the consciousness, I don't know what it's going to do, because its consciousness can move faster than the speed of light.
Right.
It's not, and so to me, I see the speed of light now as a limitation.
And you hear about sucker. It's a slow sucker.
Yeah, real slow, especially if you're driving around in one of those Mercury retrogrades, because they only have 5 speeds in reverse,
Oh,
so you're not going
to. Lord help us.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, just saying. Just
okay. So you've got like, you're using that number because it seems more auspicious for the speed of light and to convert.
Yeah, and see, in the 1972, I think they measured and got that number using a chain of lasers. A bunch of scientists hooked up a bunch of lasers, and they got that exact number. No more decimals than that. And then here, 20 years later, well, a lot of years later, turns out that that's the north latitude. Just move the decimal, but the number's the same. Oh my God! Now there is something going on here to pay attention to, right? Not that the speed of light is really all that valid for that, but that's the way they've been converting it. So I'd love to see John Keely's research. How did he get red, to
Well,
be a C note?
it's interesting. It's not as far as the notes, but the only validation of even the colors of the chakras that I've ever seen is Barbara Brannon saying that she sees them psychically. She actually sees those colors, not the notes, but the actual colors in the etheric body.
Yeah, well, that's pretty common. And a lot of the psychics from way back in the Vedic times in India 10,000 years ago, they would see those colors like as a psychic thing. And then they made charts showing movement through the rainbow and the body. But from what the measurements actually are with the body is all the chakras are this one color that's the color of plasma, an electric blue white color. I can even see it in the background in your window. The low pane on the right and the one above it has that kind of color in it. And there's a number of blue there in the right in your office there.
And it's like
And I've
pen,
seen
that pen also.
Yeah, no, this is more a different blue. It doesn't even have cobalt blue. So if you take cobalt blue and put a mag light through it and it washes it out a little bit, that's the color. And that's the color of plasma. You see photos that take pictures of plasma. So I think that all the chakras then are really one color. But where the colors come in is the chakras are responsible for bringing certain colors into the body as a transceiver. So the root chakra's directive is to help bring the red that you need into your body from the field, from the universal field. The second chakra brings in orange. The solar plexus, third chakra, brings in yellow. Then the heart, green, indigo or whatever for the throat, and blue for the throat, and indigo for the third eye, and violet for the crown. And there's certain gemstones that go with that, whose role is also to bring in those color rays into the body, even though they're different colors. I mean, like ruby for red and carnelian for orange, yellow sapphire for yellow, green emerald for green. The blue is blue sapphire. And the indigo color is basically like a gem variety of sodalite. And then violet, which you get with amethyst. And then white comes from a gem called white or clear beryl, BERYL. It's in the aquamarine family. And those gemstones help bring those colors into the body, and they match. And so the color isn't there. It's just this one single color. And a lot of
It's a
people
way of getting it into the body, not that it's actually that color.
Exactly. But when a lot of people look at the body, that's the color they see. So what are they seeing? They're seeing those chakras bringing that color into the body, making it look like that's the color of the chakra.
Cool. Now, what about frequency of the chakras? I mean, as a recording engineer, I've kind of like tuned in, and this is what I would say. I would say the root between 20 and 50, the second chakra is between 50, centered around somewhere around 100, but it varies for different people, 50 to 150. And then third chakra, solar plexus, I think of about 150 to 250. And then the heart chakra around 200 to 250 mostly. And then from the throat, it kind of varies, goes from like 400 up to about 1,000. And then third eye, 1,000 to 5,000. And then 5,000 and above is, for me, it's like 10,000 for the crown. Any thoughts because no one agrees on anything around here, right?
Right now, unless the more we move forward, the less agreement, the more variety. I mean, look at the work by Paul Schmidt, the
Resonance.
bioresonance, according to Paul Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole book that they have is full of measurements of everything in the body. So you may have a certain organ that may have 100 measurements. That's very interesting. Okay, so they have 45 hertz, which is an F sharp for the root, twice that 90 hertz for the second chakra, then less 55 hertz for the solar plexus, which some charts say that's a frequency for Kundalini energy, maybe. Okay, that's interesting. And then Uh, we move up to 85 hertz, which is an E sharp for the heart, E sharp and F area. Okay. Now that would not be green. That'd be red or violet based on the color conversions. And then the throat is 70 hertz, which is a D. And then the third eye is 95 hertz, which is a G, and 100 hertz for the crown, which is a G sharp. That's what they measured.
How do they measure that?
Well, they have different kinds of like radionic equipment and things. I
Sounds a
mean, it's
little wackadoodle.
yeah, but their book. I mean, you look at the amount of
It's
measurement
cool.
organ in the body; it's extensive.
Here's the thing that throws me off because, if you just measure the endocrine glands, I would
Yeah,
bet they're a little bit different frequency than the chakras in the etheric field,
could be, could
right?
absolutely could be. Yeah,
Mhm.
and when you look up each of those endocrine glands, and a lot of people's research, they have different measurements.
Yeah. And
So
then there's not only the endocrine glands, but the hormones that are put out by them, which are actually probably the most important part.
absolutely. Now I have frequencies for all the different famous hormones, and that is a huge study. At one point, I was going to make tuning forks for the different hormones, but that has to be done with some kind of medical supervision so you don't throw people out of balance by having too much of a certain hormone. So I
It's
thought, okay,
dangerous, really
yeah,
dangerous.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it might help, but only when it's being tested and measured by somebody with quote unquote proper medical type background, science, medical and science background combined together. But those all of those hormones and things have been measured, but you just don't play around with it. You can see how whacked out people get whose hormones are off. I mean, it's unbelievable. Some people are labeled crazy just because of a certain hormone blend that's off. And the last thing I would want was somebody to play with some sound frequencies, however they get them are in their system, and then it throws people off. That's whoa.
Right.
But
Right.
it's a future area of research that could be fantastic for people, but it's got to be done very responsibly.
Cool. Cool.
So
So, okay. So let me backtrack for a second. So we got this mathematical formula of dividing the nanometers into the speed of light. We've also got Godshaw, what is it?
Dinshaw Gaudial.
Yeah, his way of doing it. And then we've got
Mhm.
the basic chakras system where they use, the certain colors for the different chakras. And those seem to be the main three of way people correspond to color, right?
One of them, yeah. Now, what Dinshaw did, and I love this, he studied the wavelengths of minerals. And
Oh,
so, what he did originally with his glass gels that he would shine lights through and then shine that on the body is the colors in those gels were from minerals. You see, and when you take mortar and pestle, let's say, and grind up, if you want lapis blue, you actually grind up lapis. And actually in ancient Egypt, they had some lapis crystal bowls. I mean, can you imagine that? Right? You
wow.
sell your house so you can buy a bowl, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, I mean, the cost of a lapis bowl could be exorbitant. But anyway, they actually had those. And so, and then in the artwork on the walls in the temples were from minerals that were ground up. Now you can imagine the frequency that those colors were radiating in the rooms and in the artwork. And I've worked this with artists, friends of mine. I've given them minerals to put into their paint so that their paintings had some really interesting minerals, like white gold powder and things like that, that I had them put into the paint. Uh, and the colors were earth specific, come from minerals. They were not taken from being synthesized in a lab to make the color. And I think that's just fantastic. Then what Dinshaw found out later is the company was not making the glass gels consistently. So he stopped doing the glass gels and then used the theater gels, the plastic theater gels. And he felt they could be consistent with those. Okay. However, and I know a few people that have the original Dinshaw machines with the glass gels. I mean, that's very, very powerful. So it came from the spectral line emissions and the colors from actual minerals.
I love
So
that.
I, I,
I love
I
it.
studied all of his math, and work the colors out. So he used like 9 colors, and you combine certain pairs of opposites, and then you get 3 more colors, making 12. That's what he used. And I figured the math of it so that I can create an unlimited number of colors that are still in the Dinshaw mathematical world. Which is, I think, is some good stuff to work with.
Nice. So this is what I'm looking at, and it's basically probably inspired by you. And that is to actually not only have color and light, but also electromagnetics, ultrasound, and
Yeah.
scalar waves at the quantum field all synchronized together. Of course, we have to know what we're doing and what we're going to tune it to. And we can use like an electron microscope or whatever and find the frequency of all the different cells in the body and map out the musical interval relationships. So we've got a whole map, and then use all of those together to resonate you into the template of musical interval perfection.
Yeah. Now that kind of information existed in ancient Egypt. They had these various kind of onks and jed pillars and combinations. They had different names for it. So they could derive the atomic sound frequency of an individual, their actual atomic signature, okay? That's unique to each person, which is,
it's like your soul. It's like your soul.
And we're working on all that stuff with the voice bio and other things. We're in the territory. We're in that arena of unique frequencies that people have. Then, if those people wanted to go through a Stargate, okay, folks, that this is not science fiction. This is ancient and future technologies brought here from other planets, okay? But it seems like science fiction, okay? And that's a safe place to present these ideas, because it's easy to write it off, something coming out of Disney or somewhere. But anyway, then if that person wanted to go through the Stargate, that frequency is their key that unlocks that Stargate. And if they didn't have the right frequency, something would take away that equipment, then they'd be banished from being able to go through there and come and go. So it was like a perfect lock system built on your actual frequency. Now, I believe that's where that ancient level of this knowledge was. And then it got lost or buried or hidden, or some of the characters left the planet, went underground. It went somewhere that's not out in the public, where people don't know how to measure those types of frequencies.
Wow. So, okay, tell me more about the Stargate. Where are we going?
Well, I believe that these Stargates as portals, another name for it, and some people call them like an Einstein-Rosen bridge between the dimensions that open up, and these have been measured, and I believe our military knows exactly a lot of stuff, like in the movie Stargate. They work with these things. The problem is when people are out doing ceremonies, they say, "Oh, we're going to go up to Mount Shasta and open up some Stargates." Well, all right, what's going to come through those Stargates? What kind of beings and characters and energies are going to come into the Earth that maybe should be quarantined and not come into the Earth for good reasons? And then you look at what they did at CERN, opening up Stargates, and they had some pretty heavy energies that came through. Not nice. They're playing around with something very, very dangerous that could be an end game for the planet and for humanity by what comes through inappropriately through those Stargates. And this has been logged by a lot of people, what's come through, and scientists that have worked there have talked about what came through. And sometimes they didn't know how to shut it down. That's a real problem. So I tell people, don't go out there summoning all these different beings that you don't really know what they do, and just call them up and then open up something. Now, what are you going to do? Well, there were some people that did some of this stuff up in Shasta not too long ago. There were these witches up there were doing black magic rituals, and they opened up some stuff, and there all these green flames shot up into space from where they were doing their ceremony. This is stuff that should be responsible and not playing with it at all. because of
Well,
what do you
the,
do? I mean, I could say more, but it gets pretty
sure,
strange.
sure. Now, but I mean, I don't want to leave anybody in fear because, I mean, to go into a place of oneness and unity consciousness where there's universal love is always good, right?
Yeah, but even being in that place, you would not necessarily summon everything. I said, well, I'm just going to stand out on the
Mhm.
freeway because I'm radiating so much universal love that the cars will go around me, or they even if they ran over me, nothing will happen. I'll become invisible. I don't think that's not what spirituality is supposed to do. Not that type of a thing. So you got to be very, very careful. But yeah, the love frequency for sure, but with responsibility. Love with responsibility, which they
Mhm.
learned a lot about in the 60s, where there was a lot of free love going on without responsibility. And it created a number of problems in the whole flower power era, hippie movement, and all that. I'm not trying to put it down. I'm just saying that people were discovering things and playing with things that they didn't really know what they
Mhm.
were opening up.
Yeah.
So
Well,
a lot of,
okay.
yeah,
So as far as, I always think of oneness and unity consciousness as all frequencies and all sound, all vibration. Because when you're one, you are all, right?
that's right. No,
Right.
yeah, no distinctions from anything.
So what are some of the ways with vibration to access that?
Well, one way is a meditation that's called the golden flower meditation, and you bring in gold light from up high down through your crown. It goes all the way through your body. Now you do this in a visualization, a meditation. You just do it by yourself. You don't need anything. And you visualize this golden light coming down through the crown, permeating the body, touching all the cells and going out the feet and grounding into the center of the earth. That you do that on the exhale, I mean on the inhale. Then on the exhale, and you can inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. You can do that type of thing. That's real common. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Then on the exhale, from the center of the earth, you're bringing black light. Now the black light has all the colors in it. And that form of black light is the divine feminine. It has all the mysteries, all the knowledge of the divine feminine. And this was also taught in the mystery schools in ancient Egypt about working with that black light, because that's where the deepest truths of the divine feminine
And it's
exist.
and it's not darkness, it's not negative.
No, it's not negative. It's not spooky stuff. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's a black light that has all of the color in it, and so it just looks black. Just like white light has all the color, but white light is radiating out where black light is absorbing that. You know, brides in the East often are wearing a black dress. Well, if you were doing that in Hollywood, they would think you were doing some kind of satanic thing, but it's not.
Mhm.
It's not that at all. So that's a whole different meaning of black and white. But in terms of color, both have all the color in it. That's one of the ways of connecting that oneness. That's a very good meditation to do before going to sleep at night, to put you in that circuit of the
So gold through
golden
the
light.
crown and black from the earth.
Yeah. And it all goes through the feet. And then when the black light is coming up, it goes up through your body and touches all the cells and the spaces between the cells.
Hmm.
So it completely spiritualizes all that territory. What you can see as a cell and what you don't see in between the cells, where there's more space than matter. And it touches all of that stuff. And that, to me, that's one of my daily, when I want to, meditations. That's what's called the golden flower meditation. I discovered it in the book because I thought that was going to be the Eastern version of the flower of life. So I bought this book that I found, in a bookstore, an old book, and that's what I thought I was getting. And what I got out of the book was that meditation, which is worth the whole book, just to do that, which is really excellent. And there's a number of those kind of linking meditations that somebody can do, working with light and also working with that black light. And that is very moving, to be touched by the divine feminine so much it would bring you to tears. That's the kind of energy that's in that black light. It touches people's spirit and their soul beyond anything else like that. And
That's
there's
so
some of that.
interesting. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like I've never ever occurred to me that black light would be a spiritual energy because I always do kind of clear light and white light. Or clear light,
Yeah.
actually I do clear light more than anything.
But it has all the information in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Padma, whom we know, Aeon Prakasha, he wrote a book called The Nine Eyes of Light, and he's got a few pages in there about the black light in the divine feminine. It's worth his whole book. I mean, that he came out in the public and wrote that down. And then Chiara Windwriter wrote a book called Ilahi Nur, which has to do with divine light in the Turkish language. And it also involves that black light. So I have several good sources with details about working with that light. So that's a nice meditation with your eyes closed, and working with that.
What about different frequencies for triggering uh, higher consciousness?
Well, I got a number of different ones that I'm working with, and I'll give you something I have not really given out publicly. I worked with Norma Milanovic for a number of years, who wrote a number of books, The Light Shall Set You Free and Sacred Journey to Atlantis, which is in Bimini, that part of it. And she led groups all over the world going to sacred sites, guided by ascended masters, Kutumi, El Moria, those are the ones she mainly worked with. And I was part of her council developing the blueprint and the plans for a big pyramid to be built in this country called the Temple of Love and Light. And so I worked on that with her. And so she would channel Kuthumi. And in 1997, September 5th, I asked Kuthumi, well, what frequencies could we use as ascension frequencies as part of the temple and part of the pyramid initiations and such. And so I'll give you what those frequencies are. And this is like, I would consider this a very advanced chakra system. And every single one of these frequencies is built on a fundamental of 27 hertz, an A, which is 432 at its lowest whole number, 27. So the red color is 405 hertz. It's a G sharp, basically. Then the orange is 432, or 432, of course, which is orange, and with a little bit of reddish in it. Yellow is 459, which is the 27 times 17, and that relates to the Earth as well. Then yellow, lemon yellow color, which is yellow with green in it, called lemon, is 486. Okay, but 486 nanometers is cyan blue, but this is 486 hertz. These are all done with hertz. Then green is 513, which is 27 times 19. Then turquoise is 540, which, okay, and that would be also like for the thymus as an additional place between the heart and the throat. You could consider it like a separate chakra too, or a higher heart area. Then blue is 621, which is, or 27 times 23, which is a D sharp. The 540 is a C sharp. The 513, of course, is a C. 486 is a B note. 459 is an A sharp. Now I'll continue. 621 is a D sharp. And then 675, which is an E sharp. Okay, that's 27 times 25. And that's the reciprocal in the low octave of the actual resonance of the DNA. The 8.54 trillion hertz, excuse me, maximum resonance measured by Fritz Popp turns out to be 86,400 seconds in a 24-hour day. And you put one over that as a reciprocal or an inverse, and then octavize it, and you'll get a low note for that's helpful too. And then I do a pair there. I'll take that would be like 194.1807407, 194.18074. It's called A double flat with two little B's, two little flat signs after it. And these are reciprocals. That's the inverse of 675, the E sharp, which is violet. And I use those to balance the root with the 194 Earth, and it relates to the Earth day. It's actually the frequency of the 24-hour Earth day. and you blend that with its reciprocal. And so you got the top of the prana tube basically at the crown, and the root chakra for the bottom of the prana tube. And keeping that light running through the body is a very big thing to do for health and well-being. And then 702 hertz, which is an F based on prime number 13. That's for violet. And then the magenta in this one was 810 hertz, an octave above the 405. So basically, to get magenta, you take violet and red, add the two together, and you'll get magenta. I demonstrate that with laser pointers. I take a violet laser pointer and a red laser pointer and point it on the ceiling, and you see the magenta. And magenta is very spiritualized color. In fact, within the Dinshaw Gadiali learnings, that's the number one color used in treating cancer, magenta. Very interesting. And look at leaves out there. One side of the leaf is green, and the other side of the leaf is magenta, and those are called reverse polarities. They're not opposite colors. They're called reverse polarity, the only two colors that have that. So I make tuning forks for all of these. They're basically all unweighted forks because they're high in pitch. And he said, now, so I got that in 1997, and Kuthumi said, wait 10 years, and then these, so that would be in 2007. And then these frequencies can be brought into the public. And we were developing that to go along with this pyramid and initiations in that pyramid. So I use this only sort of not like a person comes in off the street for sound healing necessarily. It might not be prepared to open up these kinds of energies. It's more people who I would say are spiritually proactive. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of different tuning forks for that. And another one that helps the consciousness is part of the 18 frequencies that are the extension of the solfeggios, the original 6 that Joseph Palaio discovered. And Judy Cole and I discovered that there were 18 independently of each other. Mm-hmm. And so 963 is the highest of these 18 colors. 18 numbers. And that's a B note. And that's used by a number of people are finding it helpful for the pineal gland. And of course, there's big work these days to decalcify and open up the pineal gland, which is getting shut down for a lot of people by fluoride in the water and anywhere where the fluoride is. And also the pineal gland is targeted by some of the experimental inoculations that people have gotten to shut that light down. So our goal is to clear that out, open that up, so we get the level of light transmissions that we should be functioning on. Lighting up, literally lighting us up. So I used a 963 for that. I also used 999, the culmination of the triple numbers 111 through 999. And I find those really helpful. Then the other thing is, in terms of like opening up the consciousness, is also balancing the male and female energy in the body. And I've got a couple different pairs of forks that I use for that. One of them these are named the numbers for the 2 archangels that sit on the Ark of the Covenant. Metatron is one, and beings would sit on the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, and there's these angels, and they'd sit in between these angels on top, and they'd be putting themselves in a circuit. And one of them is Metatron, 314. It's in the E flat D sharp area, hertz. That's the number, but you can do it in hertz. And then the other one is Sandalphon, 930. Okay, and those 2 forks, both unweighted, playing those to balance and to put yourself in that circuit, calling upon those archangels through their call number. That's the cell phone number for Metatron, 314, and Sandalphon's cell phone number in the Kabbalah is 930. So that's one circuit for getting higher consciousness, meditating with it.
Then there's the 111 and 112, right? 112.545.
0.45 to get the trithalmic frequency going on, to get the pineal, pituitary, hypothalamus, and the heart all activated, which is very powerful thing to do. Okay, for sure. All of these.
So how did they come up with those frequencies? the one, it's really the difference frequency of
Yeah, the
1.45.
1.45 is the
Mhm.
frequency they measured. That
Uh-huh.
is that particular trithalamic frequency. Now, all you have to do is have two different tuning forks that are 1.45 different, and you've got that. Whatever you want, it really wouldn't matter. But I like adding it to the 111 part. But if there's something else that somebody's attracted to work with that makes sense, you could add or subtract 1.45 from it and create that vibrational. It's a rhythm actually, because they can't hear that low. A
I
rhythm of.
Right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. So
So I really.
I had this intuitive friend of mine. She said, because you can find the frequency of your heart energy of love by bringing love into your heart, and then uh, in your head find what sweep up and down until you find the frequency that matches that love, right?
Mhm.
You can also find the frequency of the key that you sing in, which we normally go and express love to in the key we sing in, right? I love my kitty. I love
Mhm.
my kitty, right? And then if you find your metabolism frequency, which is an average of your heart rate and brainwave rate, you don't have to average out the brainwave, then that's an actual note as well. And she said, if you've got those three notes and your soul note, which she says is even different than your body frequency, you have those four notes that will take you into higher consciousness.
Mm. That makes sense totally. Uh, One of the things that I do in workshops, and I use a certain type of a Merkaba that's not a star tetrahedron; it's a different shape. And we do a travel where we go traveling in this Merkaba, right? Your body stays in the room, and your consciousness travels, and it goes back to a time in Atlantis when there was a temple, an outdoor temple with steps that go up to it and pillars all around the temple, and in the middle of that temple is this giant tuning fork, kind of like there's that giant tuning fork in Berkeley, by the Metro Center. If you see, yeah,
I've
a
seen it.
big, yeah, that's pretty funny. I mean, it'd be interesting if that were tuned to something really auspicious. But anyway, then what happens? You go up to that tuning fork, and it will shapeshift and put your soul note back to you and vibrate all of your molecules in your body. In other words, it's not tuned to one fixed pitch. It's a type of material that is consciousness controlled, and it shape shifts to match. So we in the class we all go there, and a number of people come back with actual frequencies that they were told, and they'd write them down in the
Wow.
meditation.
Wow.
And it's called the Zephyrs, Zephyr, the Zephyr tuning fork. So we would travel back to that time in Atlantis where it's still going on, and be in a protective field, and go there and give thanks to the for being able to go up to this tuning fork and then have it resonate to us, and then remember it or vibrate or sing to it or write it down, whatever you want. That's been quite profound in workshops
So check
doing.
this out. This intuitive also said you can shine a white light LED into your eyes. First, she said you can see the soul frequency in a person's eyes. And I'm like, how do you do that? And she said, you shine a light, and then the reflection off the eyes you put into a prism. And depending on the colors that come out of the prism, that's your soul frequency.
I've never heard that. That's Wow.
She just came up with that out of the blue, right?
Yeah. Well, and see, that's also very interesting that you said that out of the blue, because our universe is considered by very advanced beings called the blue universe. And you'll see a lot of high deities, Tibetan ones, other ones, Christed beings with a blue light around their field. I know somebody that saw Neil Amatara over in the Himalayas, in the Shambhala, that's the real Shambhala that's over there in the Himalayas. And she's like what, 4,000 years old. Neil Amatara is her name. She's floating off the ground with a blue, like egg-shaped light field around her body. She's like levitating, and he's talking to her. She lives there, and she's lived all these years. No, she's 900 and some years. There's somebody else who was 4,000, 900 and some years old. But that blue field, and you see that blue field in religious paintings where you'll see the Christed beings with this blue field around them, which is a protective field. And I think that also relates to that plasma color that is that electric blue white, like cobalt type of a blue. And the prisoners back in the 1950s in Siberia, in Russia, were in miserable conditions. And the Christed being, that some people today call Jesus, different names, Yeshua, whatever, showed up and appeared to them, and over time taught them how to manifest with light, so they could hold their hand out and create a flower of any color they want in their hand by learning how to create with color. And he talked quite a bit about that blue light as being the color that holds the field together for our universe, held in that blue light. So when we say expressions like out of the blue, that's where it is coming from, totally.
Even down to the cellular level, right?
Yeah. And under a microscope, you can see that plasma color around the cells. That color might also, relate to things with mitochondria and so on. I mean, a cat's purr to the mitochondria fundamental of 25 hertz, and then 50 and 100 and 200 hertz. That's the 25 hertz fundamental of mitochondria. So, if you can get enough of the mitochondria going, a lot of physical things can heal up that normally are very challenging. And that's also part of that spiritualizing, is healing up the things that are distracting us from being spiritually tuned up. Okay. Another balancing that I do with specific numbers is to balance the male and female. So I use the number on King Solomon's temple, the black pillar is called Boaz, B-O-A-Z, and it's a black color. And the number is 79, prime number. That's an E note, 79. And then the white pillar, which is the male pillar, is 729, which is an F sharp note. Interesting. And so you can't really pass through the pillars of that temple when that was activated. It was like a security system. It put out a certain vibe. And if you're not resonating a certain quality of love, you can't even walk between the pillars. It's like a force field. So what I've done with workshops and things is we put those tuning forks up on one on the left shoulder, one on the right shoulder, and then one at the bottom of the left foot and one at the bottom of the right foot, and then mix them. The whole idea is using those numbers to communicate with the male and female. So Boaz for the female, and Jachin, Jachin, for the male, Jachin. And those are actually the Hebrew language for that. Those are famous, and people can look it up and they'll read a lot of stuff about those pillars. Quite interesting. So in other words, one way of getting spiritually linked up is to balance that male and female in us, make it strong, strengthen the male in us and strengthen the female, so that we get the best of both within us, almost like androgynous self. I'm not trying to say this is a new pronoun that people should use, not male, I'm just saying that we need to have, we need to have a strong male and strong female working together in doing the best that each can do. And that's one of the ways that I've used, using those numbers. And because of those numbers are for a reason, and the word is for a reason in the Hebrew language is a light language. And I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about the Hebrew language origins, because it gets created out of a tetrahedron. Let's see how a quartz crystal tetrahedron with a ram's horn shape inside it. That's a spiral. Okay. Then when you shine light through it, there's, all these different angles, and the shadows of that ram's horn shape will create the entire Hebrew language, Aramaic and everything, just as shadows through the angles of the tetrahedron. And Stan Tenen documented all of that stuff in his Meru, M-E-R-U Foundation. He passed away a few years ago, but that's some profound work showing different languages in the world, all coming from a ram's horn type of shape to inside a tetrahedron. and there's different axes on it. There's 27 different kind of angles you can tilt the tetrahedron. I'll show you one of the Rams ones here. I have one. Just happen to have one. This is not an advertisement for the Dodge Ram folks. So here you see that spiral.
Shofar.
Yes, this is the shofar, Shofar, and these are used in all these. And you can imagine these are ancient.
It's what brought down the walls of Jericho, right?
Well, that's exactly. I was just going to say that exactly. You know, because of the harmonics that come through this, and with the right intensity and all the things that they did with it, and these are incredible. So you put this kind of a shape inside a big tetrahedron, and this shape will create the shadows, and the shadows will be the exact letter shapes of that whole
That's a
alphabet.
trip. So tell us more about light languages, because there's Sanskrit and Hebrew, and they are tied into our system in a really detailed way. How is that?
Well, they vibrate with the quantum field, so they're basically a quantum language that they resonate in the quantum unified field, and so they speak to. That's why they call it a light language, because it speaks to that level of energy and that level of reality, and they're very, very powerful for that type of thing.
So the pronunciation is really important.
Words, and those words can become a physical reality if you know how to speak it and visualize it, and various things you can do with it that Sanskrit allows for. That's why you get a lot of chants and Tibetan chants and Sanskrit chants. The real energy is this hyperspace language, meaning greater than third dimension, multi-dimensional, meaning that's an easy way to define hyperspace. And certain numbers communicate in hyperspace. That's why some of these numbers that I've been mentioning, you can even think the numbers, you can visualize the numbers, you could write the numbers down on something, you could put them on something erasable and put it on like your left wrist and write a number. And you're actually working with the harmonics of that number because of the way it accesses hyperspace. So when some people are doing light language, they're picking up the vibrations of that hyperspace. That's all really evolves around the vowel sounds that have all the overtones and undertones in the vowels. And that's the whole key to it, the pronunciation and so on. I have a lot of this stuff, written out and documented. There's certain vibrations there that you can't fool. You have to pronounce it right, and bingo, that's part of that reality.
And it's really a chord, because those frequency and the harmonics are actually creating a chord that creates that vowel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Overtones and undertones, but a lot of people don't hear the undertones, but they're there, that mirror image going both directions, overtones up, multiples, and dividing to get the undertones. So you got this going up one way and going down the other way, creating this harmonic picture of the harmonic and frequencies in that vowel sound. And then as you change the shape in your mouth, in the whole cavity, you can resonate different overtones. And that's what the overtone singers are really working with.
It's interesting. A lot of people talk about our solar system, or even our whole universe, is the energy of love, the keynote of love. And, I think of it would make more sense if it's an actual chord instead of a frequency.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. More three-dimensional, multi-dimensional, actually greater than three-dimensional, that just one note isn't representing that whole thing. Totally. The chords,
It's like all the planets make up the harmonic structure. Okay, so I looked up the harmonic structure of the distance between the planets, and I think I sent it to you. It's like it's like 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times until you get to the Earth. So the distance from the sun to Mercury is 1, Mercury to Venus is 2, and then to the Earth, and then it goes up to about 20 or 30 harmonics, right? So it would be at one time. So it skips quite a few when you get up to Mars and the other planets, but they're still all within the harmonic series.
Hmm.
Which
Well,
that would I actually took the frequency of all the harmonics of the planets and set the volume based on the size of the planet, and it was kind of like an alien. So that may be love there.
the harmonics of, I mean, absolutely. Harmonics of love would be a multi-dimensional hologram. It would have to access, well, all the meanings that love has. Did I show you a symbol that had last time we did a talk of love that has all the knowledge of love in one symbol?
I think you might have.
Well, just if people missed it, I'll show you.
Oh, you got it? Cool.
Oh yeah. I move stuff off of altars or pull them off the wall here, you know. So these are the three
Oh,
shapes. You
oh,
want to take a screenshot of that?
those are real similar to the biogeometry, huh?
There's a certain similarity. And so the one uh, over here has a like a dot on top. Now, a friend of mine that taught me all this stuff, she's a contactee and has been for 40 some years with beings from all over the galaxy. She's and speaks like 30 some ET languages. She's really incredible. And she teaches a universal white time healing. And then there's the body of it. And then there's two lines, a little short line and a long line. And then at the end, let's see, I'll get it over here with my finger, is another little gesture. Now, she did these with an ink pen, and she's a wonderful artist as well. So that one is pronounced Ete Esse, ETE with an accent on the E, like in French, an acute accent, and Ete Esse. Then the one in the middle is the same as this, except the short line is taken off. Okay. And where you have this pair of lines, that short line is taken off. And that one's OSA, OESE, with an accent on the E. The second E, OESE. And then this one is just SA, ESE, with that little E at the end, having that accent again. And this has no lines on this L part, but it still has the dot on top and this little part here. And those symbols have all the, supposedly, that the ETs taught her, have all the knowledge of love in that hologram as a light language.
Hmm.
And you can say those words. You can draw I draw those words with a tuning fork in healing work. I just make those shapes in space. And when I bless food, I make these I draw these, and I do this, like I'll make a dot, then I'll do the L, and then I do the short line, the long line, and then the little bit at the end here, this little bit right over here. And I do it with my hand. I can do it, bless a bottle of wine or food, and whatever, you know, or whatever people are eating or drinking can be blessed with that energy. Now, these symbols can be written places, including places you don't even see it, like under a desk or in a drawer. There are a lot of different places because they radiate out that hologram. Now, what I've done with some of the crystal tools I've had made is I have these letters engraved on the quartz crystals.
Mm.
Like I'll take a tetrahedron or something, and I'll have these different shapes engraved into the crystal so that energy is amplified by the electrons in the crystal. I've done it with a lot of different jewelry that I've had made where I put these symbols on it.
Nice. One last thing that I always think of is, when you're in unity consciousness or oneness, you're in theta, mostly theta. I mean, it's different brainwave states, but it's theta focused, right? And then, and that's multiple things at once. And anytime you tune into multiple things at once, whether it's sparkles on the water, or all the different instruments in a song, or all the different harmonics in a bowl, or in the voice. When you tune into multiple things at once, it takes you out of that prefrontal cortex into the whole brain, where you're really on the way to a oneness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely wonderful. That's terrific.
Yeah. That's
And
why a
you
lot of sound
your
and
breath.
music does it because, or even just a view, right? That's why we like
Mhm.
views. It's like, whoa, multiple things at once. And nature has it down. I mean, just a tree. I mean, just
Yeah.
when you really just sit with the tree and all the branches at once, oh my God, you just go into,
And they're talking about the trees like in the forest, like redwoods, sequoias, communicating through their roots to other trees. And if a tree has a problem, some of the other trees will say, help it, and they'll send the message out. And they found that the most common frequency was 220 hertz,
wow.
half of 440. Now, okay, that's its own discussion, right?
Oh,
Right.
that's what you're going to turn
That's
the world upside down on that one.
that's going to, but that the trees are communicating with sound frequencies that they've measured through their root systems, and they help each other. If a certain tree has a problem, it's lacking water, or it doesn't have certain minerals or soil-based organisms or whatever, they can communicate that the other trees to help it. And I think, wow. And the fact that a lot of like underground temples that are ancient, like um, there's a number of them. There are two frequencies they measured, either 110 or 111 hertz, where 110 was actually the most common of those two,
Mm,
like the hypogeum in Malta.
that's
And the
my
air,
address. My
yeah,
address is 110.
yeah, there you
And my
go.
second building is 108.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
In
there you
between
go.
those two buildings, the 2 hertz is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. But you know that these numbers mean something, but it puts people in this gamma brainwave. And I think that was done intentionally for the spiritual work that they did in the temple, automatically would resonate people into that brainwave state. So I've been looking more and more into the high gamma frequencies, because a lot of the sacred sites that have been measured, and David Elkington wrote a whole book on all of this stuff and the language of that and frequencies at different sacred sites around the world, and what they found in King's Chamber and what they found in Stonehenge and things like that. And there's in that area, which is also in Hertz, a very good area for male voices who are chanting, because it gives a certain amount of volume. It's not to exclude females from that, but the male voices chanting it down there in 111, 110, 125 hertz, that's another really common one, would activate light in these temples in
Wow.
different ways.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're measuring them. They're going around to the various temples around the world and measuring what is the frequency that's resonating in there. And it's amazing that if the wind is blowing through a temple and it's putting out 111 hertz from the wind blowing through an underground temple, that they designed it to do that.
Mm.
Not an artifact of accidental architecture, but intentional
Like
architecture.
measured in 70 sacred sites too.
Yeah, it's
Fascinating.
pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, one last question. Is 432 that big a deal?
Yes, it's bigger. In one word, yes, or sí in Spanish. You know, uh, yeah, it's bigger. It's a bigger deal because there's so many things that resonate to that don't have the tensions and the anxiety of things that happen from 440 that they've noticed. So I'm currently believe that 440 was not a wise choice for liberating people at all. It was more created certain chaos in the field. And unfortunately, most of my life, the music that I played was tuned to 440. And I made beautiful music, but I hardly played any music up until maybe the 70s or so to anything outside of 440. I mean, it dominated everywhere.
Mhm.
But the 432 and it shows up, all the numbers around that show up in uh, various mathematics that you can do. That they measured the wavelength of the background radiation through space, basically working toward what they were going to do with satellites. And they measured 7.23 centimeters. Well, 3,125 divided by 432 gives you that plus a lot of decimals, which I believe is what that wavelength is. And I call that an ohm wavelength. It basically creates a B note, a different ohm than the C sharp that you get so often associated with the Earth tropical year and that C sharp, and people call that the ohm. And a lot of tuning fork work is done with 136.1 hertz, the Earth tropical year, and calling that the ohm. But a real ohm in the background that they found everywhere was this 7.23 centimeter background radiation frequency. It was everywhere. So I just converted that wavelength in centimeters, divided it into the speed of light in centimeters, and I got a certain kind of B note from that, which is very interesting.
Cool.
Omnipresent, like omnipresent, right? A different type of ohm, you know?
Do you know I was born at 4:32 a.m.?
Oh, that's way
It's
to
on my
go.
birth certificate.
All right. See, it had to be, you know.
Right,
I
right.
was my
Oh,
417, which is one of the solfeggio frequencies.
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. Uh, Everybody says that tuning concert pitch to 432 is a huge deal, but I always say it's nothing compared to the music and energy you bring through the music.
Oh, absolutely. Your intent.
Uh-huh.
You know, look at all the beautiful musicians who had wonderful consciousness and played awesome music that played 440 music.
I
And
saw God at 440 many times.
well, see, you know, why he can't be excluded, right? And you know, and the number 440 is the number of cubits in the base length of the Great Pyramid.
Oh,
You know,
not a
440
number.
cubits. 440 cubits. And so the number, you know, and look at 55 hertz for the bioresonance for the or the Kundalini and for the solar plexus. You know, should I freak out anytime I drive at 54 miles an hour or 56 miles an hour, or right at 55 miles an hour because it's a lower octave of 440? Oh my God!
Lord help us. Lord help us.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good. Now we got the world
All
in
good.
perspective.
All good. It's all good stuff. It just goes. Now you said one last question. Is that possible with us? That's what I ask you. Is it possible to have one last question?
Yeah, right.
This goes on and
Just
forever.
the beginning of forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I love
Well,
it. Anything did I hit all the main points?
I think so. Thank you for all your work.
No, you're welcome. And I appreciate, you know, and I love teaching at Globe and reaching all the people all around the world that we reach there. You know, it's wow, it's so cool. Yep.
Really
And
transforming
you're
a lot
helping
of
me, you
people.
know, to get that word out with all this stuff instead of a bunch of notebooks full of paper, you
Mhm.
know. I have to get that out, talk about it, share it, make things, do stuff, you know, instead of a bunch of papers, you know.
Cool.
I am
Cool.
paper trained though, I can say that.
Blessing, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Good luck with everything and you know, on the conference and all the speakers and all good stuff. And we'll keep doing it, keep grooving.
Alrighty, take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.